What's the worst neighborhood in New York? That's right, Midtown. It may be surprising to many, especially because it's an area associated with many of New York's most iconic landmarks and skyscrapers. Midtown is the most popular neighborhood for tourism, not to mention it's what we conceptualize as the center of the city. Almost every single subway line funnels people into this one neighborhood, which leads many employers to locate their offices right here. The main reason why, at least in my opinion, Midtown is the worst neighborhood is because it's unlivable by design. Meaning that if you're looking for a neighborhood to move to, Midtown definitely isn't at the top of your list. This comes down to the fact that as a neighborhood, it's conceived as what I like to call an 8-hour city. Everything in Midtown is designed around the fact that it's an office town, a commuter neighborhood. People arrive in the morning for work, they have lunch at a cafe and enjoy the limited seating in Bryant Park, and then they leave in the evening. Because of this transient nature, Midtown doesn't have large parks or grocery stores or any of the other regular neighborhood amenities that facilitate a truly livable space. The pandemic's effects on cities, as well as shifting theories of urban planning, such as an increase in pedestrian-centered design, mean that going forward, we should prioritize the following when shaping the built environment: access to green space, promoting more mixed-use development, and decentralizing the central business district of cities, sometimes referred to as CBD. Work-from-home models of employment and hybrid schedules have made office space in Midtown far less valuable than before, a position that New York City's current mayor has particularly struggled with. However, I don't think that office space is going to go away completely, as some clickbaity headlines might have you believe. There are still countless professions that require some amount of physical space, and we can satisfy these needs by implementing ever-popular hybrid work environments where some employees travel to the office on some select days. But these formats allow companies to reduce their Midtown square footage, meaning that the overall notion that office space is now much less valuable still holds true. Office to residential conversions are growing in popularity, with the biggest happening in the financial district, where the old Daily News building will be converted into 1,300 new housing units. This is a promising trend, and if it catches on with other office buildings, it could drastically increase the amount of housing units. Already, periphery areas of Midtown, like Midtown East and Hell's Kitchen to the west, blend residential, office, and commercial uses to create a much better urban environment. With the right mixed-use transformation policies attached, it could also help New York tackle the housing affordability crisis. But there's another big piece of the puzzle we still haven't addressed. What will the role of the central business district be going forward? The answer here lies within a false perception of the urban form. Most people think of cities as having a center where all the skyscrapers are and where most of the business happens, and then radiating rings of progressively lower and lower density going outwards. This is called the Chicago School of Urbanism, and not surprisingly, you can see this effect most prominently in Chicago. However, this idea of a centralized city isn't true in most circumstances. In fact, it's hardly ever true. Density often forms in satellite cities or edge cities that form a network of dense patterns rather than a singular center. In New York, the idea of Midtown as the center of the city already falls flat when you consider the competing densities in the financial district, downtown Brooklyn, Long Island City, Jamaica, Flushing, the Hub, and the Bronx. Many of these CBDs date back to their founding as towns in their own right that eventually became part of the larger New York City fabric. This idea of Midtown, or even Manhattan more broadly, as the center of the city is largely a myth, and we should start treating it as such. The reality of the urban form is that there are multiple CBDs, mostly in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn, that we should uplift as centers of commerce and trade. Maybe for a particular company, most of their workers commute via the Long Island Railroad, and as such, Jamaica would probably make a better, more affordable option to locate their offices. Maybe an organization's employees mostly live in Brooklyn, making downtown Brooklyn a much better option for meeting. However, this isn't just about where to locate offices. After all, turning Jamaica, for instance, into another office town neglects the existing vibrancy and culture of the neighborhood as it exists today. These aren't simply places of commerce. They're also centers of culture and community, many of which low-income and minority people call home. As I mentioned earlier, we should move Midtown away from this 8-hour city where people arrive in the morning and depart in the evening, moving more towards a 24-hour city that has amenities and activities to facilitate vibrancy at all times of the day. Midtown isn't just an 8-hour city, as I mentioned before. Obviously, we're recording on a Saturday right now, and there's tons of traffic and tons of people. It is still a center where people come to enjoy commerce and trade and amenities from all across the city. But the fact still stands that Midtown is still really defined by this 8-hour commuting trend. People don't come here because it's a nice neighborhood to walk around or because they'd like to find an apartment here. Oftentimes, people might travel here because it's the only place they can have access to the library, for instance, or because there's a certain store that they need to go to. Midtown already draws people in from everywhere in New York. What we need to do is move Midtown more towards a 24-hour city that has amenities and activities that facilitate vibrancy at all times of the day, for living, for working, for leisure, anything. This means creating CBDs that are not just focused on offices. These should be cultural hubs for living, leisure, entertainment, recreation, markets, crafts, events. It all starts with reorienting our mindset of CBDs and expanding the uses for these central neighborhoods. One project in particular that does this well is called the Broadway Linear Park, that proposes converting Broadway from 59th all the way down to 14th Street into livable, walkable park space. With the addition of tree-lined blocks, pedestrian-oriented street designs, grocery stores, green space, affordable housing, schools, playgrounds, and more, we can turn areas like Midtown into more than just a bunch of glass skyscrapers. In the modern era, cities will face countless challenges, and at the center of those debates is the central question of who we should be designing the city for. What amenities and services should we be prioritizing? How do we craft policies and designs that uplift everyone? These questions are complex and far beyond the scope of just this one video, but in this quest to create better central cities, we can start by establishing our ideals, that cities should be for everyone, not just the rich business people who pass through for 8 hours a day. Let's start creating cities for all 24 hours.